Hey, hi all. So I'm back again today, another interview series. Basically today I'm continuing with the Java series which I was continuing earlier. So basically today I've covered the top 10 most asked interview questions in many of the companies like which they have asked from Java perspective. So let's get started. And before that, like if you haven't like and subscribe my channel, please like, share and subscribe my channel. So these top 10 questions I have covered which are being most asked in many of the interviews. Basically they need to check whether you are aware about Java 8 features or not, or some other questions related to Java 8 basically. So first question says that new features of Java 8 you need to explain. Then difference between terminal and intermediate operations Java 8, and which are lazy one in between these two operations you need to explain, or you need to tell basically. And then third question, we have advantages of using the default method inside the interfaces in Java 8. As you are aware that like from Java 8 onwards, we have the default method inside the interface, and we can have the method implementation. Then we have the what is function interface you need to explain with the example, or what are advantages of using the optional class, giving an example. Suppose we want to throw an exception using the optional class. This is the most used scenario you can say in the companies while writing the code, and so that's why they are checking whether you are aware about how you can handle the exception using the optional class. So they are basically checking that part. And then there is a scenario based question that suppose two interfaces are there, I1 and I2, with the default methods show, and the class A is implementing both the interfaces, and I1 I2 is having default method, so both will be having the definition of show method. And class A is implementing both the interfaces and overriding the method show. Then which method will be called, like whether of I1 or I2, or will it will work or it will give the error. So this is the most again asked interview question, or the scenario based question from the default method perspective. Then we have the difference between stream API and collections. Then we have explain what are the memory changes are being done from Java 8 onwards. Then we have difference between stack and heap memory. And then the last question we will be covering is what is completable future in Java 8 and where it is being used. So let's get started one by one. And maybe I will be covering these top 10 questions in two parts. Okay. So first question says that new features of Java 8 you need to explain basically. So whatever features you are aware and you are confident on it, just tell those features. Like Lambda expression is was introduced from Java 8 onwards, which reduces the boilerplate code and enables the main functional programming. And then we have the functional interfaces got introduced, interface with a single abstract method, and it can have any number of default or static methods, but abstract method will always be single only, then only it will be a functional interface. And like if you want to tell the compiler that this interface is functional interface, then you can use at the rate function and interface annotation is there that you can use on that, so that compiler will be aware that a single abstract method will be there. Then we have the streams API feature that process collections of data in a functional style. Then we have default and static methods in interfaces. It allow the method implementation, means from Java 8 onwards in interfaces you can provide the default method definition also and static method definition also. But abstract method will not having the definition, and abstract method will be provided, you will be providing definition using the lambda expression. Then we have the optional class, and basically it handle the null values, and it helps in avoiding the null pointer exception, and it we basically we can return some alternate piece of code or alternate values we can return from the optional class. Then we have the new date time feature was introduced that improved handling of date and times from Java 8 onwards. So these are all the new features of Java 8, and you can explain it. The second question is being asked like what are the difference between the terminal and the intermediate operations. So basically intermediate operations are those which return a stream and which do not return any end result basically, and these are lazy by default. For example, the intermediate operations from Java, it is filter is there, map is there, sorted is there. And in terminal operations it produces a basically some side effect, or it produces a result, end result. That's why these are called the terminal operations, and these are trigger processing. An example, a collect method is there, for each method is there. These methods are of stream API and for of Java basically you can say. These are intermediate operations, these are terminal operations. Then intermediate operations are lazy, they don't process data until a terminal operation is invoked. So that's why intermediate operations are lazy, because they won't return any end result. So that's why we need to at the end we need to call the terminal operation. Like example collect, we can call a for each. So that's why we can return the end result. So this is the second question. Now the third question is basically advantages of the default method. What are the default method? Basically, default method are those method in Java 8 through which we can provide the definition from Java 8 onwards, and it enable interface evaluation without breaking existing implementation. Provide common method functionality to all implementing classes, and it supports multiple multiple inheritance of behavior. So basically, the main advantage is, you can say, default method, that suppose in existing code is there and you are having the some methods, but you want some method definition need to be introduced, or you want that some particular classes only need to override a particular method. So that's why default method got introduced, that without existing the functionality, we can have that some default method definition, or we can override some classes to with default method overriding. And rest classes, if rest of the classes, if they do not want the default method overriding, so they can ignore it. These are the some of the advantages of the default methods. Then we have the functional interface introduced, because basically it is a important concept of Java 8, and it introduced to for gaining the functional programming using Java 8. Any interface, as I mentioned, with one abstract method is called the functional interface. At that functional interface we uses to let the compiler explicitly know that this interface is the functional interfaces. And example of functional interfaces are runnable is there, comparable is there, custom interface. Suppose for example, this is the example you can explain. Custom interface is there, my function void do something you have declared, like so one abstract method, and then you via using the lambda expression you can provide the definition, the class which will be implementing this functional interface. We can provide the definition using the lambda expression. Now the fifth question, like there is a separate two videos are there on my channel, you can just go through it, of the optional class. I have explained more in detail in there, that it avoid null checks and null pointer exceptions. So we can return some alternate value piece of code, or alternate values to be written using the optional class. So that is the main advantage, that our code will not be break, and we can return some alternate value if a value is not present. Instead of throwing the null pointer exception, we can return some alternate value. Then we have the example like how we can throw the exception using the optional, like optional dot of nullable is there, values there, and suppose if this throws or the value is not being present and the value is null, so dot or else throw is the method using the optional, and you can throw some exception here, new like in the case illegal argument exception, value is null. This how you can throw the exception using the optional, dot or else throw is the method. Then we have the scenario based question, which is being most asked in many of the companies, that suppose two interfaces are there, I1 I2 is there, and with the default method show is there. Default method is there, so they have provided definition in I1 and I2, and class A is implementing both the interfaces and overriding the method show, like they are providing their own definition in the class A. Then which method will be called, whether of I1 or I2, will it be called, or it will throw the error? So basically the answer to this question is that it will throw the error. And like if it will throw the error, then how we can like resolve this error? So if a class implement two interfaces with the same default method, conflict occurs, true, like it will throw the error. Exception will be there. Must override the method implementing the classes to resolve the conflict. And class A implements I1 I2. So this is the method, we are overriding it. So using the super keyword interface dot super keyword is the most important. Call that particular method. So in this scenario, like I1 method of show will be called using the super. And suppose if you want to call the I2 method of show method, so I2 dot super dot show, and at the same time you can call both, like I1 dot super dot show plus I2 dot super dot show, suppose. So both the method you can be called using the interface name dot super. So this is the most asked interview question, and many of the guys stuck there. Just go through it and just have a practical example on it. Okay. So next question is streams API versus collections. So basically collections which store in excess of collect the data. Stream is process data using functional operations. Streams are lazy and support parallel execution. Streams do not store data. That is true. Like stream will never store the data, but collection will store the data. So that's it in this video, and next part will be the in my next video.